Hello and welcome to episode 173 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is December 22nd, and together with Robert and Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
So 2023 is coming to an end, and like in the previous 3 years, we want to look back. It gets even better. We again have Jürgen Thomas with us to revisit some of the highlights from 2023. And I can promise you, it's not only about AI. Jürgen, welcome back to our show.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for having me back. Thank you.
It's really fantastic. And when I looked back at our long playlist, I mean, we have now over 173 episodes. We just reached 6,000 subscribers recently for our YouTube channel, and it was
Awesome.
so cool to see the first shows with you. I actually really watched the first one again, where we had Santa Claus of SAP, where you came.
Yeah, well, look, they look like that.
Exactly. So that was really cool, and yeah, I'm really glad that you're taking the time to come to us again.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to, and really appreciate and congratulations to the success of having 6,000 subscribers. That's awesome. Wow.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Started very small, but wow, and also the patience and the endurance you had, and the stamina to push through and keep on going. Really, now you're harvesting. Awesome. Really awesome.
Thank you. So maybe before we look back and you have some, we'll just go through whatever comes to your mind. And maybe you can quickly again introduce yourself for the ones that have not yet seen you in the previous episodes.
So name is Jürgen Thomas, sitting here in the SAP, in the Microsoft headquarters. Was sitting in the SAP headquarters as a Microsoft employee in 1996 and 97, before I moved over into our headquarters in Redmond, in different development teams representing SAP workload, and SAP as a partner. These days I'm leading a team of 25 people, which actually, funny enough, I counted it this week because I did a PowerPoint slide about my team, a team of 25, which is distributed across 14 different locations worldwide. Singapore, Sydney, Helsinki, all various locations in Europe. So the task of the team, and we are in Azure, organized in the Azure core development, is working on SAP workload, whereas different flavors to it. So one is certainly creating architectures, testing and documenting these architectures for customers and partners to deploy SAP workload on Azure, but then also having developers assigned to SAP to optimize their SaaS services hosted on Azure, but then also internally having automated test frameworks done to test new services, new functionality very early, and also owning SDAF, our SAP Deployment Automation Framework, a great and very successful open source GitHub project to automate SAP deployments, means infrastructure plus SAP application plus SAP software deployments on Azure using Terraform. And so that's also in our ownership. So that's what I'm doing. As mentioned, quite a while with Microsoft, nearly 28 years now, and always doing SAP. Always SAP.
And I think, one big part of your team is located in Walldorf in SAP headquarters.
Yes, that's true. We have quite a few people.
Yeah. When you mentioned, I work for SAP, I remember Herman, the guy who works in Walldorf and sit there. So it's very close collaboration. He said sometimes I'm not sure am I working for Microsoft or SAP? It's which is it was a joke,
really
but
cool
means it's really very close collaboration.
We are blending in we are sitting in the same desks besides SAP developers there, SAP people there. And we have the same model here with some SAP folks that I'm hosting in our neighborhood, it's called. We are not having single offices anymore. It's all changed to rooms where you have 10, 12 desks where your teams are sitting. And so my team is sitting in such a neighborhood together with SAP folks as well, that SAP hired a long time ago, hired here in the Redmond space and the Seattle space. And so, yeah, works very well. Yeah, what about the 23 then? 2023 then. I mean, one of the areas, and I start from the get-go, probably with the lower lights of the year 2023 when I look back into January and some other months in 2023. We need to profoundly, profusely apologize to our customer for the outages that we had, for outages that impacted a larger number of customers, and outages that we took extremely, extremely serious and drilled into them in all the details and all the minor details, gory details, and created hundreds and thousands of improvement objects in many, many different teams, in many, many different processes. Going back into development processes, test process, but also change management processes. And that's an ongoing work. I mean, events like that are steadily taken to analyze down to the grounds and really then introduce improvements, because you always need to get better. There's always room for improvement. You never stand still here. There's always new situations as you expand your offer in many more data centers and many more regions, where you need to work on your processes, on your change management, to keep it scalable on the one side, but also keep human intervention in these processes out as much as you can. And so, no doubt about we are taking these events that happened extremely serious, and we are working. We implemented a lot of improvements already, and we are steadily working on those. I mean, that's one of the things as well that's.
I mean, when you mentioned this, one of the outcome is, for example, the MV3 new hardware.
Yeah. Right? Well, that's down to the hardware. I just want to go in that direction a little bit. Also, like I was talking about the large scale impact, blast impacts, but that also is reflected down when I take the scope down, when I take the scope of an object down that we have in Azure and end up in a VM, end up in a compute host that runs one or multiple VMs. Especially for M-Series, we have a constant improvement cycle there. So every one of the VM reboots happening on an M-Series is being categorized into buckets, investigated then. And what we see over the last 1.5 years, that we made larger progresses there in addressing, for example, software issues. Over the last 2 years, we implemented or rolled out a new hypervisor version that addressed a lot of issues that we identified in that constant improvement cycle that we have, especially for M-Series as well. As we then moved further into the hardware design of the new generation hardware that we are using for our version 3 of the M-Series family, we certainly then took learnings out of previous generations and applied it to the newer generation, which reflects then into eventually here leaving off a few parts, but on the other side eventually adding a few parts so that I can do through software some mirroring and then these kinds of things. So a lot of things that we learned out of previous regions of M-Series were introduced. These learnings were introduced in the new hardware, but also in the new hypervisor, which is again steady improvements there, steady learning cycle there, especially also There will be, especially around SAP workloads as well, high availability affairs where we, especially for pacemaker, in our version 3 of M series, are going to have new possibility of the fencing learnings out of earlier releases. So yeah, quite a bit of learnings going into went into MD3, and we are at a state right now where up to 4 terabyte we have the releases out. We are aggressively pushing the hardware clusters out into our most populous regions. Means the regions where we see a high consumption of M series, a high consumption and concentration of SAP customers being deployed, not only by RISE but also by customers that so are still running or managing their own SAP system, so having other partners managing it. So we know pretty much how many M series are deployed where. And so we certainly focus with the deployment of our version 3 of M series, certainly focus and concentrate on these very popular regions in order to get the service out there. And yeah, then we are going to have the usual three categories of our medium memory. It's already sounds a little bit strange if you call up to 4 terabyte memory.
Yes.
10 years ago, you would have, whoa, it's like humongous. Who needs 4 terabyte of memory? Well, HANA made it possible, obviously. So then we have the high memory and the very high memory. The high memory going, in this case, with version 3 of M series up to 16 terabyte. And then we have the very high memory, not very Meiji native term, but so that's going up to 32 terabyte. And as before with the releases, as we had them released in 2023 and used in 2023, the very high memory SKU that we currently have in our version 2 is a 24 terabyte memory, or close to 24 terabyte memory. With 832 vCPUs. It's going to be based on the new version as well, is based on a 16 socket. I mean, we debated a lot between, hey, do I create a 32 terabyte virtual machine based on 8 socket hardware, which certainly is less expensive than a 16 socket hardware. But then feedback from customers that see with their SAP applications based on HANA, especially S4HANA, or with S4HANA, but then also, let's say, some often running some special kind of application or some kind of vertical solution, or more vertical solutions as S4HANA. Feedback of those customers definitely was, hey, look, we are seeing an increased demand on CPU resources in those systems. So we even have some customers that chose our 24 terabyte existing 24 terabyte virtual machine with 832 vCPUs, not because they needed the memory, but they simply needed the CPU power. And yet now it's not one customer anymore. If it's usually one customer, you're like, hey, you know what, the customer did something wrong in the implementation, ABAP code not efficient, and issuing tons of database statement. But now what we are seeing is that tendency of HANA be consuming quite a bit of CPU resources simply by logic being pushed down into this is no secret. I mean, that was what they were talking about, what SAP was talking about for when they introduced this for HANA. I mean, they introduced HANA saying, hey, look, you're in memory, you don't need to upload gigabytes of data into the application layer. You press logic down. Everybody knew that logic is not running for free. I mean, it's like it's consuming resources somewhere, whether on the application layer or in HANA. And we indeed see that SAP is using that this possibility more and more to have more logic down in the database executed to avoid loading up masses of data into the application layer, and that costs CPU. So what I expect over time is that the balance of the CPU consumption between the application layer and the database layer is changing towards my application layer certainly will still play an important role. There's no doubt about it. But we see a gradual increase of CPU demand on the database layer that's running HANA. And that's why we at the end decided not to do what some of our competitors did by choosing an 8-socket and buying insanely expensive memory modules. We decided to go with a 16-socket hardware in the new generation as well, which certainly then, based on the Intel processors, has a very high number of CPUs as well. And so, yeah, we continue to go down that path, and yeah, looking forward to.
I think that's actually super interesting, because I think that might really reflect. In the beginning, it was SAP on HANA basically, or it was just a lift and shift, and you didn't do anything. So the classic, there's my database and there's the application logic or the application layer where I need the CPU. That was the starting point. But now we see probably more and more customers really leveraging S/4HANA functionality, where then also SAP is really pushing down more and more in the database layer, and that's where we need the CPU then.
Yeah, absolutely, and again, it's, if it would be one customer, you would argue, hey, look, yeah. But we see now by more customers coming in, and then some of the things, even we as Microsoft, not that we are using now our 24 terabyte VM, but we have cases of SAP S/4HANA based applications that executed in parallel are creating a high CPU demand, and so that forced us as well here in Microsoft in our SAP landscape specific product that runs off a SAP business processes already on S/4HANA to use a VM with 416 vCPUs and 6 terabyte, despite the fact that we are far away from a memory demand of 6 terabyte.
Right.
It is about the CPUs, and so again that supported us in stating and going long and taking our and still keep the 16 socket hardware as a base to expand into the version 3 of our M series family as well. As of now, when I look at our 24 terabyte VM, we consider it highly successful. We have quite a few customers using it with RISE, without RISE. It certainly is a unique offer, no doubt about it. And actually, the demand is growing, actually. And so also for the 32 terabyte going to show up next year. There are already customers knocking on a door and saying, look, in the year 2024 to 2025, we are going to need this solution. So I'm pretty excited by that, and the course that we took and the selections and we made. The other thing I'm very exciting, I mentioned that excited me quite a bit about our year 2023 was we started in 22 with a unique thing that in such a form we in such a volume we in the form into yet in Azure, which was about getting the new hypervisor underneath or into our M series hosts and with minimal customer interruption. Certainly a thing where on the smaller VMs we don't need. We have all the mechanisms in place. We have all the technologies in place to do a complete hypervisor software restart underneath the VM, with the VM being being unresponsive for a minimal number of time, really, in a way that the clusters are not fading over, that connections are not being disrupted, and so on. Now, the larger your hardware is, the more difficult this becomes, and that certainly, or the more memory you have in a hardware, the more difficult these things become. And we were able in the year 2023 to find, to get a good solution together with live migration. Live migration is technology we always had we had for a long time in our hypervisor. Now in a shared environment like Azure, where you share disk, where you share compute hosts, where you share networking, it's certainly a little bit more difficult to implement. But we were succeeding to do that for our M series, and so we could reduce the customer impact quite a bit by aggressively using live migration to get the new hypervisor version in, having things restarted as they needed to be restarted. So that's in the future. We're pretty aggressively trying to get larger and larger VMs supported with live migration. And it's usually not the blackout time. In all honesty, the blackout time is the time when I switch over from the old image to the new image, so to speak, the new image that's running on a different compute host, different server. It's usually not the problem. That's easy, or not easily, but we manage to have that below usually single-digit seconds disruption here, so that
which is way below the networking time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, we now did live migration with production deployed M series quite a few thousand times, and customers did not message or did not open customer service requests based on it. So from that side, the blackout time is not the problem. It certainly is that you have humongous memory, you have like 400 CPUs that do changes. That's the technical challenge, to get these deltas, these changes fast enough over to the destination VM, and we're working on it. We made big progresses on it, and with newer hardware, with more band networking, it's certainly that's certainly something where we think we can go way higher and be more aggressive about it.
One question, Jürgen. I mean, when we are talking about new improvements, new version of hypervisor, probably we are facing somehow issues with, let's say, old hardware. Yeah? And probably nobody experienced that so far. All cloud providers are now going in the direction that the cloud is relatively old. Yeah? And we will probably in the future, next few years, start somehow to deprecate some old hardware. So do you see that as an issue, or do you see it's still have a time to do that, or how?
No, I mean, we do that steadily already.
Okay.
This is when you go back, I mean, Azure probably 12 years ago, no, 13 years ago when we started, and you certainly the hardware that we initially started on is long out. We are actually we are steadily moving those older generations of hardware out out of the fleet. So these processes are well known. These processes are a good beaten path, and in some cases, there is customer interaction necessary. In some other cases, we can avoid it. It depends a little bit, and so I mean, we are not shy on that one. We have that all calculated in process. We know when to start the process. All under control in those cases. So there's nothing special now about M series either, all in the financials. We have program management that takes care of that, and so on. So
Yeah.
no,
I think, yeah, one important phrase is, there's a lot of topics, but anyway, you mentioned in the beginning automated test framework.
yeah.
I know what that is, right? But the whole point story, this is important for the customer. So if you can just tell it, it's internally tool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, when we look at the workload like SAP, we all know SAP workload is a mission critical workload. We all know from an SAP architecture, might it be NetWeaver, might it be S/4HANA, where the critical points are in such an architecture. And on the one side, from a reliability or from an availability, but then on the other side, from a deterministic and reliable performance and throughput. We know these things pretty well. And so from that side, we are working, we basically started to really put these architectures with workload in automated test frameworks that we use for different to cover different cases. The one is certainly they want to do the long-term testing in canary environments where your development is pushing their code through. So you have like a nicely high available setup there that you steadily have some workload applied, SAP workload applied, and then these developers are pushing you whatever through that canary environment, and you want to see where it fails, where a pacemaker cluster fails over, VM crashes, and so on, all hooked up in a nice process where you create automatically a support message for your developers, it goes into the right queue and so on and so forth. That's one of the areas. Then the other area is certainly the smaller stuff. The smaller stuff where you argue, look, there's a new functionality. Well, let's stay with the bigger picture. A new VM family, a new storage that comes in, where you are included in the development from the get-go. Let's say automated scenarios. One of our team members wrote an awesome automation of SAP HCP that we are using for storage testing, where really, where we don't need to sit there, install new stuff and so on, where our storage guys roll in, hand over new storage that they are currently developing, and we immediately can test that automated and get the results, FIO tests, these kinds of things. We can automate or we have automated in any kind of form or fashion to either apply to developments that are currently in flight, or existing regions where we want to make sure that we are keeping the latency, we are keeping the throughput, so we have to keep the throughput. So these are things these are cases that we're covering as well.
Which basically extremely increases the quality, because
absolutely.
By pushing the load, testing the new hardware, new functionality like migration, right? You would already figure it out if something is wrong.
Absolutely. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, when we develop a new VM series clear, but also new storage, other areas. Let's think about new network platforms that give us more throughput. We with the SAP workload are in the forefront testing that. First, eventually manually, but then really getting it automated and getting it into our automated test frameworks. And then, as you can imagine, when you introduce like operational things like live migrations, that was introduced in our VM fleet for many years ago for our D series, E series virtual machines, but where everybody acknowledges, look, if you go into the 2, 3, 4 terabyte arena with hundreds of CPUs, it's a different ball game for live migration. that is also where your automated test frameworks help those development teams a lot to hone and improve their functionalities. And that's where our test frameworks that we put together out of our team helped us to develop these to get these functionalities developed on the one side, and then from an operation or these operational functionalities developed, and then on the other side to have a good quality out and also reliable performance. Let's be pretty clear. The performance, we always talk about availability, but what customers with SAP workload, mission critical workload are about is also reliable and deterministic performance and throughput. I mean, nothing more disturbing than a batch job running every hour, and every hour going through the same amount of data is widely varying in the run times, or the one day it's running an hour, the other day it's running 1.5 hours and comes back the next day with 45 minutes. So these are the things, especially the reliable performance in areas where you have shared nodes as well, or shared compute nodes as well, is super important. Like we always assume with HANA, look, this humongous VM that run alone on a host. So basically, the host is, so to speak, dedicated to the customer, not formally dedicated, but yeah, you have this. If you're talking about our 24 terabyte VM with 832 CPUs, yeah, there's no other VM running on that host. So their host is yours, at least for the time the VM is running on it. So we always automatically with HANA, if you think about these things, but it's very important in HANA development, and SAP is pretty adamant about it as well. Is now these are more exceptional cases. There are a lot of customers that take a development S/4HANA development system. You don't need 24 terabyte for it. So we see a lot of development systems in the S/4HANA space that 256 gigabyte memory. That's far enough. And so these customers are running these VMs on VMs, or these VMs are small. They're 30 CPUs, 256 gigabyte, and they are not a low host. But nevertheless, even if it's a development system, or for some customers that might, as they start their S/4HANA journey, even be a production system with just 256 gigabyte memory, these customers expect reliable performance. So a lot of our testing as well, also the automated testing, is considering cases where we are not running these humongous VMs alone on a host, but where we call it noisy neighbor, where we need to make sure that the noisy neighbor effects are not impacting the different VMs. So that one customer can run a VM up to the VM limits, and wherever the limits will be in storage, network throughput, IOPS, and so on, and the CPU that is available for the VM, and then on the other hand, the other customer not being impacted by it. So tremendously important. And the interesting part there, and this is an interesting topic for the future as well, that with larger and larger core numbers on the sockets, on the CPU sockets, this is certainly becoming more and more of a challenge. So interesting area that we are working in and working on. So yeah, so that's basically as mentioned, the efforts that we have currently for the automated testing is quite high in terms of number of people, because we want to have more test coverage. We certainly steadily again work on synergies as well. Think about when we started the automated testing effort, there was no SAP deployment automation framework.
Oh yes, yeah.
And so we did it differently. We also had Martin writing RG copy, for example, for that, also an open source project. Meanwhile, resource group copy. And now, as we have SAP Deployment Automation Framework as another open source build on Terraform and Ansible, that also very Ansible parts are being used in Azure Center for SAP Solutions. Well, in those cases, we now we have it all in my team under one hood, under one umbrella. So we certainly are investing in taking our own code, our own development here around S-Stuff, and are introducing that into the testing in test framework as well, so that we have kind of a synergy effect, but also kind of a test effect of using again with S-Stuff, isn't it? And so that's where we are not stopping in a sense. Then you have different test frameworks in Azure certainly are changing, so you still have people working in that topic, but it's essential. It's essential. You can't do without it. It is to a high degree. It does replace manual testing. Mm-hmm. Where I still need to mention that we do still have people that do manual testing, especially in the performance area, where that goes hand in hand with certification. Yeah. New VM infrastructure into for SAP, especially for SAP HANA, where we certainly are working super close with SAP HANA development, where we have people, especially one person in Waldorf. You mentioned him, Goran Herman. Who is sitting with HANA development, where we have a super exchange, and where we have where Herman's like doing this job now since I don't know how long, 12 years, 11, 12 years being on Azure with Linux and so on, and he's really an expert, and you need these people, and you need
with the experience.
So testing the edges of your performance to see little things, and it is amazing. We had a case as we talk about the year 2023. We did have a case where, as this large hardware got tested by the hardware supplier and they noticed, let's say, noticed some signs of where you could argue, well, that could be a future kind of scalability blocker. Mm-hmm. But as we now move the whole scenario with virtualization on the very same hardware, this eventual scalability blocker, this data that showed up as in the future, if we push harder, we need to change something in the OS kernel here to do some improvement. The timing slightly different with the virtualization. Suddenly, this, in our case, it was way more exposed. So between HANA development and SUSE development or Linux development in general, to make changes in the operating system kernel function very deep down. These kinds of things, you need manual testing in order to really figure those out. And let's be clear. I mean, if you're in the space of 16 socket, 800, 900 CPUs, or in future even more, this is not a commodity space. That many people in, not from whether you're virtualized or not, whether you're in a hyperscaler cloud or not. I mean, they're not 10,000 of these hardware pieces out, and so the range of experience that is available, or the wealth of experience that's available in that space, is not as great as when you look into the 2-3 terabyte range, 4 terabyte range. So that's the one. The other good thing is we made progress with storage last year. So storage, we launched premium storage version 2. Eventually, not exactly with all the features and functionalities that the customers desired, but we did have a few larger customers go into production with it. Definitely see nice performance with it, especially on the read side. On the when we look at HANA, it's or the databases in general, the read latency is improved compared to Premium Storage V1. Especially in the smaller case, when you want to tailor towards certain minimum throughput, as SAP likes to see it, you're getting easier to it. For some customers that might not come out of the Unix, Linux space, these configurations are becoming easier known. There are whole classes of implementation that don't necessarily need to use logical volume manager that can handle then HANA data directory or data volumes for databases just with one disk, instead of before gluing them together with storage spaces in Windows or in Linux with logical volume manager. So simplifies things quite a bit. Admittingly, again, there was a feature gap that we released between Premium Storage V1 and Premium Storage V2. We caught up quite a bit already on that one, and we will continue in the year 2024 to close the gap and completely then. And then also eventually continue to have unique functionalities on the new storage compared to the old storage.
And which is amazing to me also feature its sub-millisecond latency, which is really great for the databases. Definitely, yeah.
No, I mean, clear thing. I mean, the database, so the goal of the storage was clearly be sub-millisecond, in at least like, let's say, for the smaller IOs in the space of 4K, 16K. And we achieve, and that's one thing where, again, when I look at what I told before with testing, that we certainly still have tests running to make sure that this is the case when storage is rolled out, and steadily observe and monitor that. And then again, the simplification about using it, using eventually LVM and so on. On the other side, we certainly, when we look at NFS, our Azure Premium Files, tremendously successful. Whereas we from our side, also in the year 2023, with all the experiences we made around Azure Premium Files, hosting NFS shares, can make the clear statement to customers, look, this is a great solution for any file shares that we have in SAP application layer, transport directory, and so on, even interface directories. It's not the solution that we want to see databases on. For databases, if you want to use NFS, there's a clear solution, and that is called Azure NetApp Files. And we are not moving away from that one. So we have a clear, and this is one of the nice cases where we have a clear delineation and clear separation of storage, how we want to use it. This is, hey, NFS on Azure Premium Files. That's the storage for the application layer for file shares and these things. You have database files. Well, they go into NFS. If you want to use NFS for those, these go into Azure NetApp Files, which proved to be an extremely capable storage. What I also did, and that ties back into our 24 terabyte VM. Ralph, a person in our team, he did a lot of proof of concepts and meanwhile, and also customer deployments with the 24 terabyte, where we actually do now a mixed storage. Beginning when we brought ANF into the market in 2019, we did not allow to have HANA data and HANA log on a mixture between block storage and shared and file shares. So a mixture between block storage and NFS share on ANF. We meanwhile do allow it. We allowed it based on the POCs, based on the customer feedback that we got. We allowed to, for example, for customers to have HANA data on ANF shares, but then using Premium Storage v1 for the HANA log, using Write Accelerator to have log writes in the space of 0.3, 0.4 milliseconds. So this is something that came out of customer approach, came out of customer experiences, where we changed after quite some testing, where we changed our policies, our support policies here.
And basically here you can, because separate channel is for the block-based storage on the network and separate ones for the, ANF is a networking VM, and basically by splitting you get more throughput, so to say, for the database, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And also you are able with ANF, since there is traditionally more network throughput assigned to the VMs, the way how at this point in time, at least with our version 2, network traffic and storage traffic is going, you do offload the host operating system quite a bit when you do the network traffic, or the network channel. So, but it's not like a recipe that we now have out for everybody, but these are these cases where for 24 terabyte and 800 something CPUs, you might need to adapt your architecture with things that work out of the get-go on the smaller side, where smallest relative, when we talk smaller side being 4 terabyte, again, it's all relative. But you need to adapt, and we did that, I think, successfully. And so that's one of the areas, storage, where and again the storage topic is never ending, because there are always new functionalities, new features. Might be Azure Files, might be ANF. ANF lately introduced smaller capacity pools as well. That is likely to help customers that have smaller implementation and where they want to use Azure NetApp files. These kinds of things. There's always development going on in these spaces, in performance optimizations as well. So there's quite a bit of movement this year, next year as well. So the topic never ends, isn't it? And it's good. It's fun, and the best. The good thing about it that every one of those development teams, as storage development teams, but also network development teams, everything that they do, they immediately show up at our doorstep, and they're like, hey, we need to have the test with SAP workload. We need to make sure it's we need to make sure it's delivering the scalability, it's delivering the throughputs, and so on. And so that's extremely helpful. But again, it requires people, it requires test automation, and so we ramped up in that space tremendously in terms of people, in terms of associated teams that help us, and big kudos there. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Jürgen, wasn't that also the case with SQL Server back in the days? Like the SQL Server development team also wanted to test with SAP workload?
So well, was it the same with SQL Server? Yes, it was the same with SQL Server. As we built a new code base in the mid of the 90s with SQL Server, SAP was center of attention with some other with some other partners as well. At the point in time, Bahn was a big enterprise resource planning application. Siebel, JD Edwards were already on the market, and so the center. One of the reasons why I moved from as a Microsoft employee in 1998 into the headquarters here in Microsoft was that SQL Server development needed a person representing SAP workload. They had a person already, but they need a person more. And so, because testing with SAP workload was a huge thing, and made SQL Server very successful to be able to handle the SAP workload in a very good fashion, and it's the same today.
it's really nice to see that it repeats itself, or we're leveraging the same concept.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is a concept you need to leverage in principle, isn't it? I mean, when you build even whether you now build a database application or whether you build a platform, you need to be able to run scenarios of very important partners, customers in a good manner, in an extreme good manner. Whereas it's not only, let's be clear, it's not only running about running some VMs and having some SAP applications in it. I mean, there's the operational aspects and the operational surrounding of an SAP landscape as well. I mean, there's an integration component, obviously, because we all know an SAP, if I have an SAP ERP and S4HANA sitting here, sure, I can business process, but in rare cases, business processes are completely contained in SAP software. In most of the cases, there's some data feeds coming in. There is like nobody in these big companies are typing in orders anymore. You get your electronic orders with some software that's in front of the SAP systems. There, at the end, there's an EDI document that will be read up, or an RFC, exactly, yeah, or whatever, or OData, whatever it is, interface is being used to interact from other software pieces that are surrounding SAP software, and are creating an order, are invoicing, are putting the invoice into the SAP system, because there are no human, there's little humans being used in these processes. And then again, that's the one way you need to be able to host more than just the SAP system, where ideally from your services you have on your hyperscale platform, you support things like such integrations, which then leads us going even further, where we can argue you need to support these workflows and business processes, and ideally with mass or with tools everybody knows. And there we are in Teams integration, we are in these types of things. That's super important to us as well, because these are really tools in interfaces everybody's familiar with.
Of course. Yeah.
Which are out there in the market. Nobody needs to buy them specifically. And then on the other side, again, the operational, and this is more in my area, again, the operational considerations and requirements that we have for running now SAP software in Azure is a complete different thing. And this is where backup comes into mind. We did improvements in our Azure backup and are committed to do further improvements in order to cover the HANA case, but also then looking into other databases that are used by SAP, and where we certainly see that if a customer moves into Azure, they want to maximize the usage of Azure native services.
Yeah,
just to offload virtual machine, just to offload the compute and storage into a hyperscaler, and then coming in and mimicking the whole operational functionality in an infrastructure as a service fashion is not as efficient for customers. They want to use Azure native services for all the kinds of operational tasks that might be monitoring, that is back, a pre-store comes in mind immediately. That is also covering, for example, disaster recovery with, for example, Azure Site Recovery, using that one. And these are areas that we're working as well. I mean, we talked a lot about, hey, we are doing this for the VM and that for the VM, but these are areas that we are not forgetting, by far not. We created an Azure Center for SAP solutions that went into general availability. It helps on one side installing or getting the infrastructure rolled up, but installing SAP applications, but also help to Monitor and combination with Azure Monitor for SAP help to get a clear understanding of the dependencies between different layers and so on. So that's one certainly an important direction here. And then SDAF, SAP Deployment Automation Framework, where we see not only the installation, actually, when we look at a lot of customers, they use Terraform Ansible as the basis for first installation, certainly, but also pushing changes out. Like we have a customer where they are not patching the operating systems. What they do is through Terraform Ansible, they roll out new system. Basically, and this is something where that also on the SAP Deployment Automation side, we probably are emphasizing a bit more. But even the customer that I was just talking about that rolls out new systems, I mean, that customer, as they do that on Azure, they took a lot of modules from our SAP Deployment Automation and integrated that into their Terraform Ansible automation, because that's also like the cases of we are getting often asked what is the difference between Azure Center for SAP Solutions and SAP Deployment Automation Framework, because both can roll out the infrastructure, both can install SAP software. That seem to be we do the same thing twice. Not entirely the case. It's addressing very different customers. SAP Deployment Automation Framework, we certainly don't understand it as something that you use, copy it over and run it. No, it's meant to show you, first of all, how things can be done. And secondly, it's very modularized so that you can pick out the modules that you need, that you want, and accelerate the customer and accelerate their deployment framework with. They don't need to start from scratch. They get these Ansible modules, they get the Terraform modules in order to start with. They can do all changes they need. They can do all the integrations into existing Terraform Ansible frameworks that they built themselves, because they have, I don't know what, on Azure, and very often multi-cloud customers are using that for different applications, different entities that they're running on different clouds. And that's where we see the purpose of SAP Deployment Automation Framework as well, to accelerate the first deployment, but then also help in the maintenance of the operations of the deployments. And so that's an area where we are investing more and more. In our team, we have quite a few people working on SAP Deployment Automation Framework that also feeds modules. Azure Center for SAP Solutions have quite a number of people working on Azure Center for SAP Solutions. So we see that these things as helping in making sure for the first step into Azure, but then also seeing the operational aspects. And I'm pretty excited about the roadmap of Azure Backup as well, and think that we are going to see, especially in the year 2024, good things coming in, so that we can have we are going to have customers that solidly can rely with on the Azure Backup service with all the backups around VMs and HANA databases, SQL, whatever databases. So looks pretty good what I see for the year 2024.
I think that's actually a really, really nice wrap up. So we have a very positive outlook for 2024. I'm sure there will be lots and lots of additional topics.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sure. I mean, look, there are tons of topics that we're following up with SAP these days, and I mean, you mentioned AI at the beginning. AI is certainly one of them. But we shouldn't forget. I mean, we should not forget that there are thousands of customers that are running S/4HANA NetWeaver, that where there's a date looming that's at the end of 2027. These customers need to find solutions to move to S4HANA. And Azure as a hyperscale platform is the ideal platform for doing that. And that is still, you can talk about AI as you want left or right, but at the end there needs to be some S4HANA, or there is S4HANA the customers running for their financial business processes. Or at the moment, a lot of customers are running NetWeaver and not yet S4HANA, and so these are things that we need to keep focused on as well. It still needs focus. It's not a runner that I can go off now and say, hey, look, take 20 people and throw them into AI. That's the other stuff is a self-runner. There is still development necessary. There's still new technology coming. Robert mentioned it with there's a new Intel technology coming in. The older technology, server technology, need to be commissioned, and new ones need to be integrated. This is work. There are new. Also with S4HANA, let's be pretty clear. We did not see yet the, let's say, I put it out there. Did we see a customer that's running S4HANA for 7-8 years?
Mm-hmm.
Did we see the data growth? We don't know. There are not a lot of customers using it as NetWeaver is being used. I mean, we know of NetWeaver. And we host some of them. We have NetWeaver databases that are 100+ terabyte on Azure, and so these are systems that the customer had been using or has been using now for 20 years. They didn't start with 100 terabyte. They were small systems, and they grew up over time. And so the interesting aspect as well, where we still need to stay on a ball, despite all the AI and new technologies, is how can we make sure that the customers can expand with S4HANA to the sizes, to the data volumes that they need. And this is also another topic that we alone can address, where we are working closely with SAP HANA development as well. But these are unknowns that there are, let's put it that way. And so this is why we can't take our eyes and focus off the infrastructure as a service side, but on the other side, new things, new technology as AI and so are emerging, and we certainly we are certainly going to invest together with SAP in those spaces as well.
I think that's. I just want to mention one thing, because in one of our previous episodes we exactly talked about that the infrastructure is the crucial foundation. Without that, nothing works. And I think that was really a nice closing word. Also, coming back to the initial how we are working together with SAP, and we will continue to work very closely with SAP, also on the AI, also on the infrastructure levels, and a lot of other services. So I think 2024 and beyond will be really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every year was like that. I mean, and it's becoming more and more interesting every year. So, it's awesome to see. I mean, I'm super positive about it, and my team as well. I mean, look, we have a team, and like me with 25 people, and it's always the same that they are doing. That's not exciting, but there are always new challenges coming up. There is always new stuff that they can try, and that they are challenged with new scenarios as well as meandering eventually here and there. Pure infrastructure as a service topic as well. Security topics extremely important these days. Where I just started a project with two of my team members. Project besides Sentinel and other things. We are looking into some other aspects of running SAP landscapes on Azure, and so it's exciting. It is exciting, and everything that comes on top of it, like AI or other integrations, make it even more exciting. And so it's great to see. It's also
Perfect.
it's also great to see that we are challenged by customers. I mean, look, there is not a single month where we are not getting new customer scenarios and things that we are not covering, things that we need to consider, things that we need to prioritize, things that we need to eventually fit into our plans and execute on it. Super exciting because this is what you want. I mean, you wanna
Very exciting next year as well. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so super stoked about it, and looking forward, sure, for now have a little break over holiday
Yes.
season.
Yep.
But yeah, then come refreshed in January and see what else see what we can do, see what we move, and what we can achieve. And looking forward to great customer interactions, great to customer feedback, might it be positive or negative.
Sure.
Customer suggestions. Awesome always to hear the scenarios and having a chance to adapt to those scenarios, test out things, enable new scenarios, enable new architectures, document those. Awesome stuff.
Perfect.
I mean, that's why we have a Santa Claus for the 2024 presents, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
24, yeah.
I should have had wore one of those
Yeah, the head.
things. Unfortunately, as we moved into the rental house, we threw out stuff like that.
But maybe next year then we'll
Yeah.
have it again with a head.
Yeah, exactly.
Jürgen,
Okay.
thank you so much for your time, for this really great look back of 2023. 2020, yeah, 2023.
23.
I'm looking forward to 24.
Still.
Hopefully we can have you back there.
Yep.
But for now,
As well.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you guys as well, to our audience as well. Happy holiday season. Hopefully peaceful and calm. And yeah, then let's
Perfect.
begin in 2024.
Yep.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Guys.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.